On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law.
All right, good morning. My name is Sacha Liu, and this is the 4th annual STEM conference. Thank you guys for being here this morning. So, can I just see a show of hands? How many of you, is this your first time being here? Oh, we have a lot of new folks. That's awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to Pat. She's going to get us started.
Thank you all for being here on this very snowy April 3rd morning. I'm just delighted it's not April 1st because none of us would have believed it. Sasha was telling me this morning that the very first STEM conference, there was a hurricane. So I don't know if it's the time of year we're having this, but it's quite extraordinary. But when I look around the room and I see all of you here, it just reminds me of how important this is to all of you. And I think I met a lot of you before we started, and I was really impressed by those of you that have been here for the third time and the second time, and those of you that are new. And I think those of you where it's your first year, you probably heard from somebody that they had come in the past, and it was such an amazing day. So I'm really excited for all of you. And it's also, it tends to be more of an older girl event. It's 6th grade and up, you know, and it's really geared towards your age group. And I'm hoping that, I'm knowing that today you're going to be inspired. So again, I'm Pat Parcellin. I am your CEO for the Girl Scouts of Eastern Mass. And I am so proud again that all of you are here today. You are the Girl Scouts that are changing the world and going to continue to do that in a very positive way. I'm so grateful to our supporters and our committee members. And a special welcome to those of you who are not Girl Scouts yet, but you wanted to be here to see what it was all about. And if today does catch your interest, I hope you will come back. And today what we're going to do, we're going to offer new ways of thinking and seeing the world around you. So the event is so important for all of you girls, and to really inspire you around science, technology, engineering, and math. And Girl Scouts is very committed to STEM opportunities, and we recognize how important this is to all of you and to our world. And it's my hope that you'll leave here today being sparked with interest and really excited about all of the opportunities, because you can do anything. You are so capable, and I want you to be inspired by what you see today. And think about what is it that really excites you, and where do you want to maybe pursue something in the future. So I am going to introduce our next speaker, Shree Bose. So Shree is a Harvard University molecular and cellular biology major with a minor in global health and health policy. Shree won the 2011 Google Global Science Fair Grand Prize. Wow. Please let us all give Shree a warm welcome to the stage.
Hi, everybody. How are you? So let me start at the very, very beginning and tell you a little bit about myself. So I grew up in Texas. I'm the daughter of 2 immigrants from India who came to the United States to make a better life for their kids than they had in India. And so they wanted us to have, I have one older brother, he's 2 years older than me. My parents wanted us to never feel like there was any opportunity that was closed to us at any point. So I grew up really with the sense that I could do anything. Like anything I wanted, if I put my mind to it, I could do it. I was pretty adorable, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. And my older brother was really into science when I was little. He would go to science class during the day, and at night he would come home, and I was the only person he could boss around because I was younger than him, and he would make me sit down and he would explain everything he learned in science class. And I remember that. I remember the spark he had in his eye. I remember how excited he was about molecules and cells and everything he was learning. And I remember looking at him and thinking, I want to be that excited. Not, I want to know science. I remember looking at him and thinking, I want to be that passionate about something. And so as I grew up, my passions were kind of focused on things that were important to me. So when I was when I was really little, most of these were focused on really kind of things that weren't that important, like not wanting to eat my vegetables when I was really little, and thinking, I think the reason I don't want to eat my vegetables is because they're green, which does not make sense if you think about it. But at the time, I was in 3rd grade, I think, and I decided I wanted to see how I could make vegetables turn a different color so they would be more exciting to eat.
One of the winners, Shree Bose, did her first experiment in 2nd grade by trying to turn spinach blue. In 4th grade, she built a remote-controlled garbage can. And for this science fair, at the age of 17, she discovered a promising new way to improve treatment for ovarian cancer. And it's young people like Shree, but also the people on this stage who make me incredibly hopeful about the future. Even at a time of great uncertainty, their stories remind us that there's still discoveries waiting to be made and unlimited potential waiting to be tapped.
Actual true story. My parents bought me a spinach plant. They bought me blue food coloring and a syringe. Why would they give me a syringe? I do not know. But I proceeded to take the spinach plant, take this blue food coloring, and inject it into this plant. And then I put it in a cabinet and completely forgot about it for 2 weeks. So plants die when they don't get water or sun. And at the end of it, I had this dried up, somewhat blue spinach plant. And I took it into school, and that was my very, very, very first science fair project. And I remember people laughing at me. I remember standing next to my board with this dried up spinach plant next to me, and there would be people who came up and they were like, "What were you trying to do here?" And I remember very proudly saying, "It's more exciting to eat blue spinach. It's better." And I kind of held on to that. So I had a lot of projects that were really focused around what was important to me. So I didn't like to take out the trash when I was in 5th grade, and I decided to make a remote-controlled garbage can. And so I could pilot this little trash can out to the curb instead of actually pushing it out. So these were things that I was constantly thinking about. I was constantly sort of trying to figure out ways to make my life and the life of people around me easier. And I was constantly questioning how I could do that growing up. But my real sort of scientific questions didn't start until I was 15. And when I was 15, my grandfather passed away.
I was so close to him and wanted to do something. I wanted to fight this disease and help others survive. I wanted to be involved in cancer research and see what was out there.
And at the time, I actually had just started learning about cancer in school. I was in freshman biology in high school, and we were just learning about cancer. And in freshman biology, they show you this diagram all the time about cancer that shows a little strand of DNA, and then it shows a lightning bolt hitting it. I remember one day looking at that in class and thinking, that doesn't make sense. How can that little tiny lightning bolt explain how my grandfather had gotten so sick? It just didn't make sense. And that was when all of the questioning that I had done for the past 15 years of my life, that's when it started mattering. And I am passionate about figuring out how to make this make sense. So I started looking up everything I could that was related to cancer and DNA damage and all of these things that I knew nothing about at all. I was reading these scientific journals. I would have to Google every other word because I didn't understand anything. And I started learning. The questions that I was starting to ask were questions that were listed as the research interests on professors' home pages of their labs. And I reached a point where I realized that I couldn't do this alone anymore. The questions I was asking, they were just a little too big for me to tackle alone. So around that time, I decided I would find a mentor. That was the way to do it. I wanted to find somebody who could help me, who could give me the chance to work in a lab, to start understanding the techniques that are used to try and figure out how cancer works and how we can better target it and how we can treat it and how we can cure people like my grandfather. So I, again, got on Google and I looked up a lot of professors in my area. I looked up graduate schools that were near me and I started writing emails. And all of my emails started off with, my name is Shree Bose and I'm 15 years old and I'm really interested in studying cancer. And out of over 100 emails, I got rejected by all of them, except for one. And that wasn't even like a hard acceptance. It wasn't like yeah, come into my lab, I can tell you're really excited. It was how about you come talk to me and I can figure out whether you're insane or not. It was one of those. So I remember being 15, I went to the lab of Dr. Alokananda Basu, who ended up actually being my mentor, and I remember she was late to our meeting. So I was sitting in this lab, it was the first time I had ever been in a lab, and I was sitting there and I remember I was shaking. I was so nervous because I really, really wanted to be able to work in this lab and do something that mattered. And I remember at the time, all of the emails I had written had this idea that I had not fully formed about what I wanted to study. It was this kind of off-the-wall, bizarre idea. And the first thing Dr. Basu said when she walked in was, after the, "Hi, it's nice to meet you," was, "Your idea doesn't really make sense. It's not possible. What you're saying, what you're interested in, it doesn't make sense. You don't know enough." And I sat there and I was like, she's not going to take me. This is it. And then she said, "But I like the way you thought about it. I like the way you went through the process of figuring out a bunch of things along the way and how you came up with this idea. And so I want to give you the chance to work in my lab." So I was so excited. I was 15. I had just gotten my driver's permit. So my mom would sit next to me and I would drive to lab during the summer. And I remember that it was the most fun I've ever had. I would go into lab every day. I would bumble around lab every day. I was breaking glass randomly. I was not capable at doing a lot of the things that you do when research is involved. I mean, we were studying breast cancer in this lab, and I didn't know anything when I started. And over the course of this summer, I learned. I learned a lot. I was bumbling around, I was messing things up, but I was learning, and I was excited to be learning. And I kind of had that same spark that my brother had when I was little, and I was like, that's what I want. And so I did my first project on drug resistance in breast cancer. I was so excited about it. I would tell anyone who would listen about it. My friends in high school at the time were busy doing fun summer things. I was in the lab, and whenever we would meet up, I would be like, "Do you want to hear about drug resistance in breast cancer though?" They'd be like, "No, we don't." And I'd be like, "Okay, but you're going to listen anyway." And I explained it to anyone who would listen. And so I was really excited at the time. I had been doing these science fairs since I was little, and this was my first sort of project that was related to biology and what I wanted to do in life. And so I entered this project in this science fair that I had been competing in for a really, really long time. I was so pumped. And I won nothing. Nothing at all. And I remember I walked out, it was a room sort of like this where they presented awards. And I remember I walked out the door and I thought to myself, wow, this is what I wanted to do with my life, but it turns out I kind of suck at it. Which is rough to realize, especially when you're 15. And there was a while there where I was convinced that I never wanted to do research again. I was done. I'm not good at it. Why would I do anything I'm not good at? I have better things to do. And I spent a few months thinking that. And then after maybe like 4 or 5 months, I realized that I missed it. Like, I hadn't gotten into research because I liked awards. I had gotten into research because I was excited, because I wanted to figure out how my grandfather had gotten sick. I wanted to understand. And so I went back to this lab, and Dr. Basu at the time was like, well, you know, you can work on this breast cancer project again, you can keep working on it, or you can come up with your own project. And so I was immediately like, yes, I want to come up with my own project. I know nothing about anything, but I want to do that. And during that next summer, I came up with this really cool project on drug resistance in ovarian cancer. So cancer is basically uncontrolled cell growth. It's basically when cells keep replicating and they don't stop. And we don't fully understand why that happens. And there are a lot of different theories. There's DNA, there's the genetic material, there's like energy, and there's proteins, and there's a lot involved. There's a lot in there. And so the way I went about trying to develop my own project was by making a list of everything I was interested in looking at. And it was like a list of a bunch of proteins that I had read so much about that I didn't know enough about. And I took it to my mentor and I was like, okay, I think one of these is important for how these cells become resistant. So basically how patients get cancer again after they've been declared cancer-free. And I think it's important, and I want to understand one of these proteins. So the protein I focused on was this protein called AMP kinase, which is a metabolic protein. And metabolism is basically how energy works in cells. So this protein is really important for how cells detect their own energy levels. And so I studied it in terms of how cancer cells stopped responding to this chemotherapy drug called cisplatin. And basically what we ended up finding was that if we blocked this one protein, then we could make cancer cells start dying again with this drug, which was kind of cool because it's a more effective way to treat resistant cancers. And I was 16, I was in the lab, I had gotten my license at this point, and I was driving myself back and forth, and there was a moment where I was holding one of my results. I had repeated the same experiment like 20 times at this point. I was sure about it. For the first time, I was really sure about it. And I remember looking at it and thinking, I love science, I love research, I love what I'm doing. And I love understanding. And so after that, one day my dad called me. I was doing this project. I had put it all together. My dad called me and he said, hey, have you been on Google's homepage today? And I was like, no, why? And he said, well, there's a little banner ad at the bottom of it. It says, introducing the first ever Google Global Science Fair. And I was like, well, I like Google. I like science fairs, so if you put them together, that must be perfect. So I decided to apply. And to apply to the Google Science Fair, I made a website. And basically, it was all of that explaining that I was telling you about to people who didn't want to listen. I put it all into this website that I was so excited about. And so I sent off this link to Google, and a few months later, I heard that I was a semifinalist. And then a few months after that, I heard that I was one of the top 15 finalists from around the world. And they flew us to Mountain View, California, to Google headquarters. And we had this public viewing. And so I worked with cancer, and you can't really take cancer cells to a public viewing. That doesn't really make sense. So they said, bring something that's representative of you. And so at the time, I decided, well, I'm from Texas, so I'm going to take a statue of a cowboy, which is a great idea, but the statue was very flimsy and the head fell off. So I have this headless cowboy statue, and the kid next to me has a fully working robotic Lego arm. And so we're standing next to each other, and at that point, I'm convinced, there's no way I'm winning. We're done here. And I was so, I relaxed because of that. I was so sure that I wasn't gonna win that I calmed down. And I remember at the time, that was what made the difference. Like, I could show how excited I was about this project because I wasn't nervous about it because I was sure I wouldn't win. But I did end up winning somehow. And I also make very photogenic faces. And it was an incredible opportunity to do a lot of things that I wanted. So I got to go on this sort of whirlwind of crazy, amazing things after. I met President Obama twice. He's really nice. I was one of Glamour magazine's like amazing young women. And I just got the chance to do all of these really amazing things. But the thing that made me the most excited was to get to talk to students, was to get to talk to people like kids like you, and to get them excited about whatever you're passionate about, honestly. And so I came to Harvard. I'm a senior at Harvard now, so I'm in my last year. And I think what I have been most excited about is really getting to have an impact. Getting to talk to kids like you and knowing that you're going to go on to do really incredible things in this world. And I want you to be excited about it. So in my course of getting to talk to kids and getting really good questions about how I got started and how you guys can get started, I realized that there weren't really good tools for really the first step. The way I got started in research was by emailing hundreds of professors and getting rejected by all of them. But that doesn't have to be the way you get started. Like, you can get started in tech by building things. You can get started by reading online and not understanding things for a while. And so when I started getting questions that were related to sort of engineering and how do you get started with building technology and building hardware, I realized that I wanted to make the tools to make that possible. So I met a co-founder who sort of shared my vision, and we decided to create that. And we created this tool called Piper, which is this little kit that's meant for kids. And so we have a series of games in the Minecraft world that are sort of virtual challenges. So in the game, you have to find diamonds. And so you build an actual series of LED lights in front of you that light up when you get close to diamonds and unlight as you go away. And the first thing you do in this game is actually to build your own keyboard. And so it's a way of pairing sort of virtual play and physical play and making it a fun way to get started with tech. But I'm not going to say that that was a simple thing to do. You know, you hear a lot about how hard STEM is to get into for girls, which is not true. But you hear a lot about this divide. You hear about guys doing STEM and girls not being able to get in as easily. And I had done that for research. I had gotten started. I grew up in this culture where I thought, you know, I can get started with anything. There's no barrier. There's no reason why I couldn't. And so I kind of thought that technology and starting a company and doing these things, I thought that would kind of be the same. And then I went to this conference, this technology conference where we were showing off our product, and it was all guys, it was all men. And our box, you can see it looks kind of like a little wooden box, right? And I started realizing something kind of odd as we were walking around this conference. I was with my co-founder, who's a guy, and whenever he would hold our box, people would come up and they would say, "Oh, what cool piece of tech is in that box? I wanna see it. What is it?" And when I held the box, people would come up and would say things like, "Are there cookies in there?" Actual story. That happened. And I thought for a second, it was just the first time, okay, well, it's just one person. And then I realized it happened again, and again, and again. And it kept happening. And so I passed the box back, and it stopped. And so I started realizing that these divides do exist. They are real. They are less real than they were before, but there's still a ways to go, and you guys are going to be the generation that makes it possible for every single girl to believe that they can go into science, technology, engineering, and math. And that is a great thing. That makes me happier than you guys can ever imagine, because there are so many questions in biology, in engineering, in technology, and in math that are still left to be solved, that are still so unexplored, and there's so much that's left to discover. So as you guys start your amazing journeys in life, and I'm sure you guys are going to do incredible things, I want you to keep 3 main things in mind. First, I want you guys to find what excites you. I want you guys to find your own spark, what you want to talk to everybody about, even if nobody else seems excited. I want you to find that. And then I want you to make your own opportunities. If that involves going and finding your own mentor, then do that. If that involves going and building your own whatever you want to build in life, do that. But make your own opportunities, and don't for a second think that it's not possible to do anything. And third of all, I want you guys to remember your communities. As Girl Scouts, you guys have this incredible network of sisters who are all going to go on to be powerful, amazing young women. And I want you guys to remember that. And I want you guys to mentor and be there for the next generation and inspire them to do the same. Because that's one of the most important things. I remember when I was little, I always wanted to be a Girl Scout, except I'm really bad at camping. That was the only reason my parents didn't let me. But I wanted to be a Girl Scout because I saw how close everybody was. I saw how you can inspire each other and how you can make each other better. And that is powerful, and that is incredible, and I hope that's something you hold on to as you go on to do amazing, beautiful things. And it's a pleasure to be a small part of that starting journey. So thank you so much for having me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your days. Thanks.